Hey, this is Jay with Sakred Gaming, bringing you some Destiny PvP action with the Monte Carlo. Why the Monte Carlo? Well, to be very honest with you, I'm just trying to figure out an assault rifle that works in year 2. So if you have any suggestions for me, I feel like I'm kind of out of the loop and don't know what is good and what isn't. I know in year 1, I was all about the Suros. The Suros regime was just absolutely phenomenal. Then they nerfed it, and then they nerfed auto rifles in general, and everybody went to something else. I know the auto rifles got a buff in year 2, but they just don't feel as competitive as, say, a hand cannon or a scout rifle or a pulse rifle. So if you have any suggestions, though, what is something that's really good or anything like that, I'm all ears. I'd love to try it out and just try something different out. And I'm also, speaking of trying something different out, I'm also running the Stormcaller instead of my typical Voidwalker Warlock. So trying that out to see if I like that a little bit better in PvP. But don't really want to talk about the gameplay or Destiny or anything like that. Instead, I wanted to respond to a question that I got from some new parents, and they were asking about how they could encourage their kids in their faith. And I thought that was a really good question. I have an 8 and 9-year-old, and it's something that I'm trying to figure out myself. A lot of times it feels like I do a much better job teaching my kids about video games and other things than it does about faith and everything. And that's kind of an interesting topic too to try and teach your kids about, because ultimately their faith can't be my faith. When I was growing up, I kind of had my mom's faith, and it really wasn't my own. So you want to help your kids get their own faith. It has to be something that they actually choose. And I think a big part of them actually choosing that, though, is seeing it in us, seeing our faith lived out, and it's got to be real. It just can't be fake or anything like that. And I think that helps them in their faith journey, just seeing that realness modeled out. But I guess that would be my first piece of advice. You can't fake faith. It has to be real. It has to be genuine. So you have to work on your own faith in order to help your kids grow in their faith. And the other piece of advice that I have is it's not about taking your kids to church. A lot of people think that if they just take their kids to church and everything like that, that's the way to go, let the church handle it and stuff like that. But really, it's about, instead of taking your kids to church, it's about being the church and actually living out that faith in front of them and taking them along with it, maybe serving in some ministries and just helping people out, loving on people and caring about people. When your kids see that, I think that really gets a hold of them, and that's a really good way to do it. But other than that, I've got one specific thing. I was actually reading in Joshua, and God actually gives us some help and gives us some advice for something, and I wanted to share that because my kids right now are going through Joshua. They're doing Bible quizzing, and they're going through Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, which are some interesting books to go through when you're kids. But I want to share this one passage with you that's found in Joshua. It's Joshua 4:5-7. It says, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." All right, so what's that talking about is there's this time in the Israelites' history where God intervened in a pretty miraculous way. And what he wanted them to do was to set up these stones. That way, whenever somebody else would see these stones, like their kids, whenever they were walking by with their kids and they saw this big pile of stones, their kids would ask, "Hey, what are these stones about?" That would give them an opportunity to just remember and tell their kids what God had done. And that's true with all believers. I think there are times where God, we all experience God just kind of reaching down and radically impacting our lives or doing something miraculous in our lives. And those are the times that a lot of times early on we remember to tell people about, other people about, and everything like that, but then we'll kind of forget about them. So if we have these standing stones, though, this kind of memorial, though, out and about in front of us, it gives us a good opportunity to tell our kids when they see these things, or to tell other people when they come over and see these things as well, and gives us an opportunity to share our faith and kind of communicate that. So I think it's a good opportunity. Now, how the heck do you do standing stones in our present day culture? Because obviously we're not going to pick up 12 big rocks or anything like that and sit them in our house. Well, I've actually got this picture, and I think pictures are a great way to actually do a sort of standing stone. So here's a picture that I have that actually comes from my life, where God radically intervened and did a miracle in my life, and it involved me actually hitting this Amish buggy in this car. I had a brand new 1995 Chevy Monte Carlo Z34. It was a pretty cool car, not the greatest or anything like that, but for me at that point in time it was pretty cool. But I ended up, like I said, hitting this Amish buggy, and I almost killed the people that were inside this buggy. In fact, one kid was life-flighted, critically life-flighted to a hospital. And I remember when it happened, I thought, why, Lord, is this happening to me? And I think a lot of times we don't understand this, some things that happened to us at the time. But I remember God clearly speaking to me, and he said, I want you to praise me for this. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to praise you for almost killing this kid. I don't know if this kid's going to live or die. And he said, really, I just want you to trust me with this and praise me in advance for what I'm going to do. And I thought it was the most craziest thing at the time to do, but I did it. And through that, I saw God totally heal this kid. I remember calling the hospital. They didn't want to share the information with me about what was going on with this kid, but I was like, hey, I'm the guy that actually hit this kid, and I'm just trying to figure out if he's okay and whatnot. And the nurse was like, I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. And she ended up sharing that the kid just did a complete 180 and came out with it and ended up leaving the very next day. And the doctors were kind of dumbfounded by what had happened. So for me, that's something where I saw or got to experience the hand of God radically, being involved in my life. And that's something that increased my faith. When I entrusted this situation to him, he handled it and he took care of it and he got me through it. Now, if he wouldn't have healed him and I would have went to jail for maybe vehicular manslaughter or something like that, I still would have trusted him with that situation, because, I would trust him that he'd have some purpose for it. But to me now, when I have this picture hanging up and other people can see it and they come over and they're like, what in the world is this picture about? This gives me an opportunity to share my faith and to share what God did. It's a standing stone. It's also a reminder to me, because if I wouldn't have this, I'd probably forget about it. But when I see this, it's a reminder for me that I can entrust my life to God. So I want to encourage you with that. What has God radically done in your life? What miracles has he done in your life? Find a way to make them a standing stone so that you can share them with your kids and share them with other people that come across you and everything like that. And if you don't have anything in your life, maybe that's a sign that you need to start stepping out on your faith with some things. Maybe it's something, that God's asking you to witness to somebody or to do something like that. I want to encourage you to step out on faith, because when you do that, when you step out on your faith, God is always faithful. We might not understand it or we might not see it at the time, but often in time we end up coming to see those things. But that's what I wanted to just impart or pass on. If you got any questions or comments, I'm all ears. But that's where I'm going to end it. As always, take care and God bless.